Yo, what's up, guys? It's Talon, and today we're going to be coaching an Emerald Caston and Echo player who's a bit newer to the game, came from Dota, and it started about 2 months ago, and I really want to explain kind of the basics of how Wild Rift revolves around waves at the end of the day, and so that's really what a lot of this is going to focus on. It's also going to focus around the lane phase and all of that type of stuff, so if you want to understand laning in mid lane or just laning in general, or you want to understand how waves really end up dictating kind of the entire decision-making process within the game, then stick around for the video. If you're interested in coaching yourself from a rank 5 Sovereign autofill player, then just DM me on Discord, Talon1169, or through the link in the description to my Discord server as well. And let's get right into the video.
Emerald 3, I climbed there mostly playing Echo, Misfortune, and Amumu. And then I had an 80% win rate on Echo until I got to high plat, when then it went down to 60.
Gotcha. Okay, so is Echo like kind of the blind pick and then Caston's kind of like we counter pick when we see a good matchup, or how does it sort of go?
Yeah, usually that's how I do it. I also messed around with some weird Varus mid stuff, but I mean, I only have like a 58% win rate on that, and it's not super typical.
Yeah, I mean he's an okay mid laner. I don't really personally recommend it, but it's like anything that you're comfortable with, like if you like it, it's definitely viable. So do you have any like typical issues you feel like you have when you're in games, or anything like specific right now that you have questions on, that type of thing?
I think it would probably end up being elo specific, but like when I try to focus on my macro, especially on a hero like Cassidy,
Yeah.
right, where like I need to, I feel like the farm is being taken everywhere on the map, and then people just don't know what objectives are, and I don't know what to do in a situation where like all the farm's being grabbed, and
Gotcha.
I need farm.
Makes sense. So kind of how to get gold on the map, that type of thing. That makes
Yeah,
sense.
like
Yeah. Did you have anything else? Sorry.
the reason I play Snowball, yeah, no, like the reason I play Snowball Flash Farming Champions is because like macro's always been a weak spot for me, even when I played Dota 2. Like I want to get better at that. And then with Caston specifically, I'm nowhere near like the limits and like what I can do on the champion, and somebody who I'd like someone who
You're kind of cutting out at certain
better to
times.
point out like some opportunities that I'm not.
Yeah, okay. I
Yeah,
think I get the gist of it. You're cutting out a little bit, like in certain times. I'm not sure if you know the specific reason. I hear enough of what, so I know what you're talking about. But I might be saying what a couple times if you cut out. So just letting you know that.
you're good. I'm doing this entirely on my phone. That might be why.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's still good enough, so it's fine. I'll let you know if it gets worse. But and obviously, let me know if there's anything you can't hear, understand, whatever. Or stop me if you have questions. But yeah, initially, so I understand that's kind of the thing we'll focus on in the mid game. But obviously, we'll focus early game as well as we see it. And so the first thing here, so you're obviously in a good matchup, right? You really do counter Echo pretty hard. And so you want to be trading rather aggressive, like when you can around your passive, stuff like that. And the first thing is here, once he uses his first ability, so the first thing is, like, now that he doesn't have a cooldown, you need to punish really hard the fact that he doesn't have a cooldown, whereas if we look at what you did, you kind of back off. So obviously, as an Echo player, you would know, Echo with no first ability level 1, he's not going to do anything. But now you just let him push the entire wave into you for free and get level 2. And what a good player would do
I could have just bullied him.
Yeah, you could have bullied him. Like, again, once he uses his first ability, immediately walk at him, click your second ability, auto him, and then start hitting the wave, because you don't want to give up this wave pressure. Now, if you're into like a Lucian, a Jace, right, the champs we know counter us very hard, then sure, you can sort of play this passive style because you don't want to trade on the early, and if they're going to push hard, you're happy. But if he pushes hard here, I don't know how many of my videos you've watched, but I've sort of been showing the strategy that you can do with Echo, where you push the wave super quick, and then you immediately go invade blue level 1, and so say your jungle did start blue, your jungle's dead, just from that play. And so that's like why giving up this much pressure, not only does it allow the enemy to potentially invade, but it also gives them the level advantage, and it allows them to go wards, so like they can keep track of your jungle. So it's really not beneficial, because we're in the lower rank, the enemy doesn't do that properly. So that's the first thing. Punish them when they don't have their ability cooldowns up. Even if you're Cassidon and you're scared because you're like, oh, I'm a late game champion, you need to try to squeeze, because that's the biggest problem. I've coached probably 3 to 4 Cassidon players. Every time I coach them, I see the same thing, and it's like, they basically accept the fact that they're Cassidon, and they do not try to push any type of lead before they hit 2-3 items. That is not how you can play a solo queue game. Maybe you're in a competitive game, sure, but like in this type of game, we need to find ways to squeeze what we can. So the first thing, punish the last hits. Second thing here, no reason to or punish his cooldowns, I meant, sorry. But no reason here to use an ability on this. So again, same thing as I told you, right, with the trading, when he uses his first ability, well, he could do the same thing now because you don't have an ability. So you're essentially a level 1 champion right now because you're on one ability. Autoing this doesn't do anything for you. You could have just sat and autoed for fun, right? Like you could have normal autoed, right? You didn't need to use an ability. And so then you'd still get the prio, you get the same benefit, but now you have that ability. And then as soon as he walks up on you, you just second ability, and then you could first ability. And then in terms of upgrading, Ascen's kind of unique in that like level 1 through 3, you can sort of, depending on the situation, you're going to upgrade different abilities. It's not like one way every time. And in this situation, I'd imagine it's going to be pretty hard to land your first ability onto the Echo a lot of the time because he's going to be in minions and stuff like that. And so third ability is going to be a lot more guaranteed kind of damage, right, to land. So I would
and then I can punish him when he goes up for last hits.
Yeah, it'd be a lot easier. So then you have first ability level 3 instead of level 2. And this is sort of the type of thing you're going to partially discover on your own through trying things, and then maybe you watch some top players, you see what they do in different matchups. But yeah, just keep that in mind. Like second ability is often what you'll go level 1, but in some situations where say you're in a really bad matchup, you're going to actually want to go third ability level 1 or first ability, because first ability is longer range, so maybe you can get that free last hit, right? Or third ability, because then it's easier to kind of land that and then simultaneously hit the enemy. So like just trying out those different things is important to keep in mind. Basically, I would say if you want a general rule, right, I do want you to experiment yourself as you play the champ more, but as a general rule, I would say second ability is going to be the most damage, right? So it's going to be the best for like a good matchup. So like Echo, right, go second ability level 1. But a hard matchup, I would say oftentimes third ability level 1 is going to help you get some damage off while still getting the last hit when you're kind of getting bullied. Or first ability, if they really outrange you, would sort of be how I'd look at it that way. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so yeah, it makes sense. So like probably if they're melee, if they're gonna have to come in for last hits, if I'm trading a lot in melee range, I should probably go third ability. If it's a situation where I need to snipe last hits and maybe have the silence in general, level that one.
Yeah, and then if you don't know what to do, second ability is the default kind of type of thing. So yeah.
That tracks.
And then here, again, it's the same thing, right? So you really should understand this because you're an Echo player again. And so this is an important kind of thing. Actually, I was coaching someone earlier today, a mid laner, and the same thing. It's like you're not really thinking about what the enemy is going to do after, like you're not thinking about what abilities they do, what they want to do, all this type of stuff. So let's look at Echo right now. What does he do? He third ability, dash, first ability, and then you flash. So if you're Echo, you're level 2, like he doesn't do anything to you now, right? He just got his passive proc as well, so he literally has no damage. So what do you think you should have done instead of flashing here?
I should have stepped out of his first ability and traded aggressively.
Exactly, because he has no cooldown. So I'm glad you understand that. So we can clearly see, right, it's more about the thinking about this than it is like you not knowing it. You're clearly aware of what you should do, and so we just have to think again how the enemy are going to play. And again, I think the general, again, to generalize it, it's like you're playing like you think Kassadin just doesn't do anything before level 5. Kassadin actually has pretty good base damages. And then you put yourself in a position to get traded on, which again, same thing, because you didn't, and you would have killed him, right, if we traded earlier, because then we'd have the extra spell rotation. So the main issue
100%
is that earlier trading. But then even if we look at like what happened here, like obviously he's in range, and again, we know the champion, we know he's in range, and the wave is pushing into us. So we're half health, they're full health. You can let the wave push into you now. Whereas you're walking up for no reason to trade when you don't need, like the minion's not even low enough. These minions will all kill all of this. You're not even going to lose one minion if you just sound your turret. So like we need to also understand that if we do get in a bad spot in lane and the wave is pushing into us, just let it push. Try to be in range to get the XP, but even if you miss out on 1 or 2 XPs from the minion, if it's slowly pushing into you, you're still going to be chilling, because as I said, right, you do want to try to push small advantages as Kassadin. But we are totally happy when we need to just be, a little bitch for the first 5 or 10 minutes. That is fine. It's just we don't want to do that when we see advantages. But once you are behind, then it's like, okay, we're fine with accepting that the early game might be bad, that type of thing. And then here, last hitting just requires practice. So I guess there's not.
Yeah, I'm just not used to his animation.
Yeah, it's a little awkward. So I mean, I don't think I need to say anything specific. I will say though, don't be afraid to use abilities. Make it easier. Like obviously if we can, we want to be able to auto these, but if you feel like you're really struggling, it's okay to use the minions a little bit, because we did miss out on probably about 200 gold here, or to use the the abilities, I mean, to last hit the minions. So that's something to keep in mind. And then yeah, we'd be on mana boots here if we did end up last hitting properly, and then I would recall for mana boots, but because we're not on it, that's fine. Luckily, he pushes into us, so we just get to kind of play for free as well. But yeah, so again, to reiterate, need to utilize, you know, especially into most AP assassins, even a lot of mages, we need to trade back when they use their cooldowns, and we need to understand, like, we can try to get advantages early. We need to make sure that we're autoing the minion in those advantageous matchups so that the minions are slowly pushing into them, because then we get the level up first, whereas Echo has constantly reached, you know, the level before we reach the level, like the next level, and so then he's able to trade onto us, and we want to do basically what Echo was able to do in that situation. And then if we are in a matchup where we do end up falling behind in terms of health, if the wave's pushing, there's not really anything you need to do. You just let the wave push into you, and then use abilities to last it if needed, and those are kind of the main things. So yeah, I mean, like, I'm watching a very consistent thing, and with the last hitting under turret, like, it's fine to miss last hits. We all do it. But the thing is, you just had a previous wave where you missed them all, and then we were kind of able to see how much health a minion is going to be at before it dies. And like, this is just you lacking knowledge of when it's going to die to, like, the turret. Like, you can let it auto one more time, you know, like, you just kind of need to understand that. And we saw it at a similar health before the turret could have autoed one more time. And so that's just something to keep in mind.
Honestly, I think how much I played Echo has kind of made me hit
really...
last hitting under turret, because I never need to.
No, that's fair. That's fair. And so that's something you're gonna get used to. So again, it's not really something, but I do want you to have a specific focus on that. I mean, like, obviously,
oh, for sure,
nothing specific really to get, but yeah, I think that's pretty straightforward. And then here I would, instead of trying to like rotate or something, I would recall for mana boots right away instead of pushing this initially. And the reasoning is, early power spike is gonna be mana boots, right? That's like the first thing. And so we have mana boots, and then we have one amplifying tome. Now, if you get this wave, you basically don't get much more power, right? You're gonna get an extra 200 gold. You might be able to then get this thingy as well, but like, it's not gonna be a lot. And so what you're doing now,
I did have a thought process behind this, actually.
Yeah,
and I wanted to get that wave because I thought I would have enough to have mana boots and build the tier for my archangels.
Okay, gotcha. So I think that's a fine thought process if that's what you have. I don't really mind that. So I think that's totally okay if that's the reasoning. The reasoning that I kind of want to recall first is because I want to have a tempo advantage where I can then roam on a wave really, like, quickly right after. And if I recall on that other wave and then I come push this wave, I'm going to have a roam timer. Whereas if you push this wave and then recall, the next wave is going to come right afterwards, and then we're going to have a bad recall timer.
That makes sense. Okay.
Or we're not going to have a roam timer is what I meant to say, right? So
yeah.
And then in this situation now, you overstayed as well. So now you're giving him prio. Whereas if you'd recalled earlier, we end up getting that prio back pretty much for free. Even if you recalled after that wave and then you did get the tier, like you said, you wanted, like, even there, like, again, I don't mind that reasoning too much. I think it's fine. And if you did that and then you came back right after, now you'd be on the wave and you'd be very powerful. But you can see you're sitting on 2k gold. You're not very great mana. Your mana's fine, but it's not enough to, like, ever kill someone this much mana.
Yeah.
And yeah, now we're just, like, kind of wasting a lot of time. And, like, luckily the Echo is roaming on bad timers. Like, he still has an advantage on us, but he's not really taking advantage properly. But yeah, basically, once we're hitting that mana boots, we want to be really hard looking for a recall the best of our ability by pushing a wave. And once that wave's pushing, we immediately recall. And then usually what ends up happening, this is kind of like the first power spike of casted. It's not a large power spike because we're casted, but hitting mana boots plus maybe amp tome or a tier, whatever you choose, and then having level 5, now you actually have the ability to roam and kill people and, like, finish people off. You're not gonna, like, one-shot someone, but if your team gets someone a little low, you
clean
now
up a fight.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so what's happening instead, right? We see how you haven't actually left mid one time. Whereas if you'd done the recall timer we spoke about, or then even you got a second recall timer, like, say, let's kind of go through a little hypothetical here, right? So let's just say you do what I end up telling you that you should have done the first time. So basically, it would be at this point even you would recall right after and then buy your mana boost. So let's just say hypothetically we recalled on this wave, or since he's pushing really fast, we'll say we push this and then we'll go to the previous spot we spoke about. So let's say you push this wave and then you recall. What would happen is you get your mana boots and you'd actually still have sapphire crystal, so you'd have an amount of stacking even if you wouldn't have tier. And then you come back to lane. You're probably gonna have to push one more wave now because the wave's gonna come back by the time you get here. And so then you're getting on the wave first because Echo's busy wasting time here, and then you're pretty strong because you have your mana boots, you have everything. And so let's say then you get to push that wave. Well, then after pushing that wave, let's say now you look for a roam. Let's say the roam doesn't work out and you get absolutely nothing from it. You're just gonna recall because you're probably gonna be low health realistically. And then you're going to come right back and you're going to lose nothing in mid. You're going to lose absolutely nothing. And then you're going to be able to push that another wave probably and then roam again. So you'd probably be able to, this wave, you get a roam right after this wave. Then next wave comes, you clear that wave. Maybe you have to clear one more wave. So let's say 2 waves from now, we get a second wave, roam. So within 3 waves, you create 2 potential roam opportunities, which either they do absolutely jack shit, who cares, or you get a kill or something. Either way, that's at
you
worst,
cut out a little bit at the end there.
Oh, yeah. So I just said either way, we either get, potentially something beneficial, as in like a kill or whatever from the roam, or we just get nothing and the roam doesn't work out. And in either way, it's either as good as what happened here, because nothing happened here, right? Or you create a beneficial situation for your team. Now, obviously, there's a chance that you go, you roam, you die, and whatever, but you're casted in with ult, and if you're pushing the wave first, then even pushing the wave means that you're also denying the enemy some gold. So it's most likely fine. And if you see an angle where you're like, oh, I'm not going to be able to help there, then just leave. You dying would be a separate mistake that we would worry about. So yeah, that's kind of the point, is that we could have created multiple roam opportunities within the same amount of waves, where instead we just stayed and farmed. So that's really what we're looking for.
I think the issue is, like, I'm not even considering roam opportunities. I'm like, I'm kind of weak in this lane. I'm down gold. I'm Kassadin, and if I had done anything, even gotten like 1 kill and an assist from 2 roams, like we just spoke about, because the thought process you explained would have given me time for 2 roams.
Yeah.
I would probably be close to even with the Echo, and I would have hit my timers faster in this game, which would have made a huge difference.
Yeah, and the other thing about these roam timers too is, like, more than 50% of the time you're going to see nothing. So like what I really want you doing when you do, like, say you push this wave, right? What I want you doing is I want you to start walking like halfway and then make the determination, right? Can I go?
Yeah.
Or is there nothing? And that's fine. Like, sometimes you just go to midway through the river and you're like, oh, nothing's happening, I go back. It's fine, because you would have just sat in lane there anyway. So it's more about like giving yourself the opportunity, even if oftentimes it's not going to work. And then same thing here. Look, he used his entire kit on you, and what did we do in response? We didn't even damage him. We decided to look at what our ability did. I think you just actually misclicked. But like, the point is, we're not trading back on him. We're not trading back on him when he's using all these spells on us, and so we're just losing a lot of trades. Even if it's a Lucian, like, which I know, like, we're going to be really scared of Lucian, because we should. Even a Lucian, if he uses his 3rd ability to dash onto us, and then he 1st, 2nd ability, whatever, we can trade a little bit back on him once he does that all. Whereas, like, again, if you're doing this, you counter Echo hard. Like, if you're not trying to trade in this matchup, then I can guarantee you're not going to trade in any matchup. And so the thing is, I get, like, it's like kind of, you're probably a bit, you are new to the champion. You don't understand the power spikes when you can trade everything. And when you don't understand that, you have to fuck up a lot. Like, if you watch me play any champion, I recently learned Echo, I recently learned Syndra. I'm not playing well in these champs initially. My win rate on these champs for the first, let's say, 50 games was negative. It was like 48, 49 in high elo, but like still 48, 49. And then now I've played these champions. I've played about 70 games of them each this season, and my win rate on them is about 60-ish in high elo for both of them. And so the point is, if I'm able to early on test these things and try out all of those like different issues and really limit testing the matchup, try to push my lead, I'm gonna get shit on initially because I just don't know the champions. But what that does is 50 games down the line, now I'm 60% win rate in sovereign lobbies, and like, you can't possibly get to that level if you're never trying to find these different opportunities. Whereas like what you're doing is like, you're not gonna feed, you're gonna get to your items at some point, but you're never gonna be the reason you win the game for the most part. You're just going to be the reason you didn't lose. And like, we don't care about that, because that just means you're going to be perpetually a 50% win rate once you get past the low elos that we're currently in. So does that make sense?
No, that makes perfect sense. And I 100% agree with your whole like thought process on testing it, because that's exactly what I did with Echo. Like, I played PvP lobbies and I went in on crazy shit because I just wanted to see how far I could push the hero.
Yeah.
I mean,
And I would say I recommend doing it in ranked because PvP, like the players are so bad. However, I do understand there is like kind of the worry that, oh, I'm going to lose a lot of games. And so if you can't get past that mental barrier and you just want to play it in PvP, that's fine. But I would say it's going to expedite the process. Like if you do go into ranked right away, like I do this in ranked. Like I learned these champions in ranked in my high elo. And yes, like I lost some games, but usually in the long run, that's better. It's also why I usually learn champs within the first month of the season. And then I like kind of find what I want to play to get like the higher rank later. But regardless, that's obviously up to you. And then the point I want to mention here is and this is a really good thing to mention, is when we do end up roaming, you want to get as much as you can out of your roams if you end up putting yourself all the way over here. So like if we look at the situation, there's currently a wave top and there's currently a wave mid. And so your thought process is, I want to go back to mid. But how long does it take us to go to mid? Let's say 15 seconds to walk there, right? And so how long does it take us to clear a wave? Maybe 5 to 10 seconds to at least get some of it cleared. And so what you end up doing here is there's a full wave and you just go away and you go towards mid. So now you waste 15 seconds to go towards mid and try to clear that wave, but then Renekton's able to get this entire wave. Whereas if you clear this wave right away as you roam, then you just go towards mid after, then okay, you're getting gold guaranteed top, you're probably going to get some gold mid, and then oftentimes what happens is someone like this Jarvan will just cover your lane, and then it's fine, right? It's even better there. So the worst case is that you're going to cover one lane. The best case is that you get to that one lane really quick, and then you go and clear the other wave as well. So basically, once you roam, you can push that additional wave if there's a wave right there. You don't need to leave immediately. Oftentimes when you roam, you can even push a plate right after, but instead you just kind of sit here, and then you're not on the wave right away. And now we didn't actually even get either wave, right? Because we ended up kind of getting stuck between the two. I feel like you were kind of like deciding on what you should do, and then you tried to recall. And so you can see you spent like 2 seconds recalling, you spent some time going into your jungle randomly. You're just wasting a lot of time because you're not choosing something. Like we need to really commit to what we're gonna do, that type of thing. And then again, same. Yeah, go ahead.
And like just explaining, like you're obviously right. I should just go.
It's fine to explain
I
your
do
thought
remember
process. Yeah,
my
go
thought
ahead.
process there was yesterday. It's so weird because you know how like you've been on a win streak on your stream.
Yeah.
I've had a win streak for like the past 2 days. I think I got up to 14 games or something.
Yeah.
And then yesterday, I lost almost every single game.
I lost a lot yesterday too, actually. So it's the same thing.
And
It's normal. Yeah.
this game is from yesterday, and I was thinking, well, I just got flamed in 3 games in a row for taking somebody's lane farm.
Yeah.
Is this Jarvan gonna freak out if I stay top? Should I just go back mid? And that's so stupid. Like I wasted my time on that when I should have just gotten the
that's
creeps.
why I mute chat. I mean, it will influence your gameplay negatively if you listen to other people. I mean, like, you have to have an ego. Like, you have to really think that you are the best player on your team, regardless of whether or not it's true. I mean, to an extent, like, that's not always true, right? Too much ego bad too. But, like, you need to be selfish. You need to try to get, especially with a champion like Kassadin, your goal is to get gold in yourself. You need to prioritize your own gold and your own stuff. And then if your teammate's mental is so weak that you taking 200 gold from him makes him, run down, like, oh well. You're going to win more games in the long run than you're going to lose that 1 or 2 games because of that. So that's something to keep in mind. But yeah, I do understand the thought process, and it makes sense totally. And then going into this part as well, this is kind of the same thing where a lot of your mistakes revolve around waves. And this one is, again, also use the map to determine when the next wave is going to come. So if you can see, right, that this wave is right at your turret, which means there's a wave right there. Like it's about to come on your screen. And when you know that that's going to happen, you should be pushing that wave immediately too, instead of just skipping that wave and then going somewhere else. The reasoning is because if you push that wave as soon as it reaches mid lane, you get about 25 seconds to do whatever you want because the wave's not going to spawn for a long time and get towards mid. So then you get a lot of time to roam. Whereas instead what you're doing now, there's 6 minions in this mid and there's only 4 of his. So all 4 of those minions will die. You'll lose 200 gold there guaranteed. And then the enemy get a bunch of free gold. And so we just don't want that happening. Whereas if you push that, then it would push all the way under this turret. You get the time to roam, and if nobody responds, they lose the gold. So that's kind of why you want to be doing that. Does that make sense?
And it also gives us vision too. If I push that wave and get the creeps on their side of the map. Yeah.
And you're casting with ult and flash as well. Like maybe if you're really you have no flash and you're a squishy champ and you're really like that's different. But in this case, you're not even fearful of a gank. Like you'd pretty easily escape as well. So.
Yeah, no, unless they have like a Gnosis or some shit, they can really lock me down, but they don't.
Yeah. And here as well, Our entire team's mid. I don't mind you trying to find that kill. I will say mechanically, and again, this I understand you're newer to the champion, but you should be ulting a lot quicker to gap close here. Like you could even just ult up here and then first ability. Like because your goal here is to KS. So I want to make it very clear. You were trying to KS this because we want gold.
100%.
And so you're just trying to get in range and see if you can do something. That's a small thing, but yeah, you kind of see how you first ability initially. So and then here we want to be side lane. Our dual lane comes mid lane. And you go there, nice. I'm really happy about that. I love when we're looking for side lane plays rather than and again, I don't even think there's no reason to fight this, right? Everyone's
I was trying to peel and get the silence.
Yeah. The silence, like they're still gonna be autoing, they're still gonna kill, but it's not a big deal, whatever. It's you wasted like a second, I don't care. But the point is, like, had we gotten this wave initially, right, then now that we actually look at this scenario, we actually would have ended up getting this wave in time in the beginning. So like you don't know that in that situation. I can't possibly predict that, but that's where this, like, every time that we waste a second or two, now this situation that happens, it's not gonna, like, there's gonna be a couple of situations every game that kind of don't happen, which you don't even notice because you don't obviously see that type of stuff. And then additionally, again, you're very fearful. Like you ult back, that's fine. Okay, but like what realistically can they do? They're gonna auto you a little bit. Your two teammates are here. You have all of your abilities, and what do with all of your abilities? You flash. If you're really that scared, that's fine, flash, but use everything first. Like, you might as well use all your abilities on her, get her half health, and then flash. There's no reason to flash right away. Like, I mean, your damage, like, legitimately, you've probably done less than 2,000 damage in 8 minutes. Like, you've really not interacted with anyone. Like, we're not dealing damage to champions, we're just not interacting, and we're still, you got a kill there, obviously, that's nice. But, like, and we're still losing lane, like we're not really getting anything. So it's just about squeezing that lead. So main thing, again, squeezing the leads better, which means we're punishing like enemy walking up for last hits. We're utilizing the fact that our passive does allow us to win these trades against a champion like Echo, and then we want to auto the minions. We kind of spoke about all this stuff in the early game.
This is my new lighter.
Are you good?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. And then once we get that kind of advantage in the early game, we're starting to play more on the side lane if our team comes towards mid. If we do end up roaming and getting on a side lane, we want to make sure that we get the wave we're on and then the next wave that's coming so that we create a longer time that we can roam. And then we start going towards a different lane and using sort of that, basically all of our decisions are based around waves. And then in terms of mechanics, gotta limit test more. And we need to make sure that we use our abilities when the enemy are kind of trading on us rather than just running away instantly. Like we need to, again, it's the same thing about squeezing leads, except in this case it's squeezing out your damage. So it's just like that type of thing. It's just generally like, I want you to make more mistakes because it's like, obviously there's mistakes, but all these mistakes are mistakes by not doing anything. I want you to start making mistakes by doing things because then you can learn a lot more. Where it's like right now, everything we're watching, it's hard to find like these other things that I'll notice with other players because we're not even like putting ourselves in a position to possibly do that. So that's something to keep in mind. And then where should you be right now?
I should probably be side laning.
On which side?
Against the Renekton top.
Why? You're right, to be clear, don't be nervous, but why?
It's kind of a bad fight. Our whole team isn't here. We're outnumbered. I'm not really going to make a difference on this. I haven't hit my timers yet, and the top lane's pushing in.
Yes, all that's correct, and there's one additional thing that I think is extremely important to mention, which is that dragon is spawning in 10 seconds. And I want you on the opposite side of a dragon when we're behind this much to try to squeeze gold because most of the team's going to get distracted by dragon. But all of what you said is additionally, like also important. So yes, we should be squeezing that gold. You could even recall now because you have your archangels, right? That's fine too. But ideally, yeah, we wouldn't be fighting. Instead, we end up getting caught by the Echo. It worked out, I guess like we'll take it, right? But obviously not.
The team saved me, but
yeah, we'll take it. We'll take it. It works out. So we're happy about that. But even here, I want you walking topside right now, and I have a feeling you might not. You do, very happy about that, so that's perfect, exactly what you want. And I've seen multiple times where you've decided to go to side lane, so I think you do have a decent understanding of like when you should be on side lane. I think there's a few times where we're deciding to go for like a mid fight when you don't need to, but I think you're definitely like aware of that, so that's really good as well. And then here, I would want to keep going top lane and try to play for this turret. Ideally with the set, we'll see if it works out. Like it might not, but I would be looking to possibly.
I don't remember what I do here.
Yeah. So yeah, I think this is kind of the same thing where it's like a lot of times you'll just go one wave too early. because it's, again, right, this is the wave, and then you try to make a play on this wave for the turret, and then if that wave gets cleared because someone shows up, then you leave. Whereas it's, again, you're kind of making that, but everything leading up to that was correct in terms of what you should do, so that's really good. And then it's just that additional wave. We can kind of see where the turret currently is and where Renekton is. Like, you would be autoing that turret, and you'd either kill it or it'd get, like, low. And a lot of times...
And there's no way Renekton kills me and Set by himself either.
Especially because you have ult flash. So, like, even if something crazy happens, someone shows up you don't expect. When you have ult flash, you're generally not going to die, unless, like, you get one shot, CC'd, whatever. Instead, you go side lane on the opposite side of Baron. We don't want to be side laning on the opposite side of Baron as a mid laner in 90% of cases, because... it's very easy for the enemy to just like go on to Baron if, say, your top laner goes here, because your top laner is the one who should be here. And so if he ends up going here and then you're here, you end up in a really bad spot. Now, maybe if you need to clear a wave really quick, that's fine, but the wave was already pushing anyway, so it's not really necessary to be here. And you guys should be on Baron right now. And say that you were properly side laning and you were with your team, you should have been pinging Baron and done it with your team. Instead, you're on side lane and it works. The only reason that it's even okay play is because your team won so hard.
They won a team fight. Yeah.
You weren't even there, so, like, you didn't even do that. You're just, like, happy. And it doesn't even make sense how your team won, honestly. Also, what the fuck was this flash? What? I'm so confused.
I was so scared of the Renekton for no reason, dude. I can't justify that.
Okay, there is a big issue we can see here. We've spoke about it, so I'm not going to speak too much deeper, but, like, this dude is literally, like, he would have to have, like, 5 dashes in a row to kill you. And again, I just think it's like you not paying attention to what the champion's actually going to do to interact with you. And also, you had your ult up, so, like, that also doesn't make, because you could just ult it if you really were that scared.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just want you squeezing things, trying to, like, actually understand what the champions can do, and then when you are full health, let them try to go on you, see what happens. You would lose to Renekton if you tried to hard trade him, but he's not going to one-shot you. He would go on you, and then you just W, or you'd ult out, and then you'd be fine. So.
Yeah, and then I can just get out. Yeah.
And again, here, another problem is just you're not greeting the wave. You're letting your team get it. Like, this wave, you're currently on it. You go for blue buff, but you should be getting this wave. That's 200 gold, and then you get the blue buff. Because, like, now you're letting your team get the gold, which, again, since your team's carrying you, it kind of makes sense in this case. But you should be trying to get yourself the gold. And then now that you have the Baron, I'm actually okay with you side laning on bot side. Because, you know, Baron's gone, and now you just want to push aside. So I'm fine with pushing side now. Ideally, your Kai'Sa's mid here, but she's not. So if you cover mid, I don't mind that.
Well, Kai'Sa was, I think, so I went back mid.
Yeah, I think this is fine. I do want you pushing top now because that's the easiest turret to get. So I would have wanted you to go top after. We have a minute of Baron, but we're doing bad as a team. So clearly, we're not going to get much out of this Baron. And so for me, I would be like, okay, I can just get a tier 1 turret. That's all I'm really going to get. And then that's all I'd go for. If you end up trying to go bot side, that's fine too. But again, waves, like, the waves matter more than this random camp. It's wave then camp, wave then roam, wave then war, everything. But, like, you're letting this wave die to the turret when you could realistically use your W on this turret that's getting a Baron wave, and you'd get that tier 2 turret. So, like, again, I want you topside, but even if you're here, that's fine. But you need to be playing around that turret, playing around the wave, and making plays on it. Everything in the game revolves around the wave at the end of the day. If there is a wave currently in a neutral point or an aggressive point, you know, in relation to the enemy, then that gives you agency to do something. And again, here, I'm going to give you a crazy secret for Kassadin. Kassadin has 0 skill shots. I don't care that your first ability is technically a skill shot. If you ult onto someone, you auto-aim all 3 of your abilities, and it's fine. So, like, look here how you try to skill shot this. If you just ulted onto her and then you clicked everything, she's dead. Even through this shield, you would pretty much just kill her through the shield.
Yeah.
But, like, instead, then, like, somehow you got the kill, so I'm happy about it. But yeah, we should ult and then use our full spells and just auto-aim them. You do not need to aim any of them, because if you ult onto someone, it guarantees the landing of all of them. And yeah, again, we should be topside here. Even now, I want you recall and going topside, so I'm going to hope you do that. Looks like you do, so happy about that. It's perfect. And then I'm pretty sure we need to contest drag, because I'm pretty sure you're down 2 dragons. So we should try to contest. And then the problem here is that you're on 3rd dragon and you haven't hit death cap, I believe. And that needs to be the goal. Like, the goal is always to hit death cap on 3rd dragon. If you're not hitting that, and the reason you're not hitting it is all the things we spoke about, not squeezing the leads, right? So it's like, if you just
probably would have had it 2 minutes ago if I did half of what you were suggesting.
Yeah. And that's the thing. If you're not like playing to squeeze things, then usually what ends up happening is your gold is just going to be a fifth of whatever your team has, roughly. Like that's just how it's going to work. And so if your team has 40k gold here, then you'd have like 8k or whatever. They have more than that, right? And so we can actually see here, if you did a singular thing I said, you're 46 gold away. And so sometimes it ends up like this, right? Where it's like actually we said like 10 different things you could have done to get gold. A single one happens and it leads to this. And that's why like it's nice is you don't see the result from a lot of the small things, but it randomly happens in a game you don't even realize, where it's like, oh, I hit that death cap, and then maybe that death cap means that I one-shot someone I wouldn't, whatever, kind of straightforward. So also here,
level 13 too from the experience.
yeah,
really helped the power spike.
Because you didn't recall, you're pretty low health, so we should also be recalling about 30 seconds before an objective. And then it's also easier, like you can recall quicker if you have more gold, because then you don't have to squeeze gold to get to your power spike, whatever. And then again, mechanically here, you did the same thing. You're trying to start every fight with your first ability. Like look at, like you're aiming it all around, no reason. We're just gonna tap it when someone comes on us, and then if you realize that he came on you here, like you could have just tapped it, but instead you're holding it. It's literally just making it harder to land. Then you tried to land it, you didn't even land it, and now your teammate had to waste his ultimate. Your teammate wouldn't have wasted his ultimate. And like, let's look at the fight. Does Set having ultimate matter now? Maybe it would have. Like maybe if he could ult right here, that could actually help. Maybe it doesn't. But again, these small things, sometimes they matter, and all you need is one or two of those things mattering. Now we just killed 2 people. The enemy are pretty much all mid. Don't recall right away. Get the fruit. That's some gold. Go bot wave. That's gold. Get the wave that's going to come next, because obviously if a wave is pushing this far, then there's going to be another wave coming soon, right? That's just how it works. And so if you see a wave here and this wave's already really low, that means that it's been there for a while, which means another wave's about to come.
Our wave spawned on our turret too, so yeah.
Yeah, so you can tell like there's going to be, but this wave isn't the first wave. There's a wave here. Like, so there's this wave, and then this wave. So there's actually multiple that you're going to be able to get. But instead, we're recalling first. And I don't mind you recalling and then going to the wave. It's not the end of the world. But it's that small timer difference where it's like, now you recalled, you get all this, then you have to recall again if you want to spend that gold. But if you go there right away, it's just saving another 2 seconds. So it's a constant time save that we want. And now you don't even go bot wave, which is also problematic for different reason. But now the problem is, right, that bot wave's pushing, right, or Baron spawning in 15 seconds. Now if the enemy pushed the Baron, you have to worry about that bot side. But say that you push that bot side when we said, then you're recalling, say, 5 seconds before Baron spawns. Now you get to come, and the wave's pushing, so the enemy are worried about that. So it's also about the pressure that you generate and when you decide to go on the opposite side. So when you want to go on opposite side is like when there's not an objective currently spawning, but it's spawning soon, and then you go on the same side when the objective's actually like physically available. And then again, you started your fight, you haven't ulted yet. Your ultimate literally builds up more damage and becomes more valuable the more you use it. So you need to be using it, which is kind of something I actually haven't mentioned on Kassadin. Are you aware of that fact?
Yeah, I am aware of it. I just wasn't using it very well in the game.
Here you should just ult, right? I'm just saying, like, you just ult, and then just ult again.
I would have killed her, actually, probably.
Exactly.
If I started that with an ult.
If you started with an ult and you'd built your ult up and it was a level 3 ult, you would one-shot her 100%. But instead, we're level 1 ulting, and we also we don't start with the level 1 ult. It's our last ability we use. So you would have actually gotten 2 ults. Like, this was... Okay, what's the timer? We see 3 seconds, and then let's look when we start using our first ability. We start using our... Oh, I did not mean to do that. But either way, we start using our first ability at 16:09. And then when's the first time we ult is 16:12. So that's literally 3 seconds. So you just wasted an entire ultimate in this fight. And then again, could have been a level 3 ult. Right. So that's just something to keep in mind. But pretty straightforward with the mechanics. Just need to start with ult more often. Need to actually trade back on the enemy once they use their spells rather than running away after they use their spells. Because that's a common thing. Like, people are like, oh, I'm taking damage, I'm scared. But if it's not an AD champion, like... Obviously, ADCs, they have sustained damage, right? Yone, Yasuo, Caitlyn, anything. They're going to have sustained damage. So you do kind of have to be more constantly worried. But any AP champion or ability-based champion, like even Varus, even though he's AD, he's ability-based. Ezreal, whatever. So all those champions that use their spells, now we trade, not doing that. So there's a lot of those mechanical things. And I'm imagining I'm going to find these mechanical mistakes with Echo. Obviously, it's more apparent with a champion that you don't actually know how to play very well. But I'm sure these same things still show up. And it's just like... Because you're better at Echo, it ends up not being noticeable as much. So,
well, yeah, you're right, and definitely like it's a time thing. Like I said, I started playing 2 months ago, so I don't know the champion pool very well at all. I'm learning as I go.
That's totally natural, obviously. Yeah, I would say one thing is like you don't need to know how every champion works. You usually just like, I still don't know how every single champ works perfectly. Obviously, because I've played so long, I understand pretty well. But like,
Mhm.
what you really need to know is kind of the dangerous points, right? It's like, I need to know that Echo can dash onto me and then auto attack, and then that he does damage. I
Yeah.
don't need to know how that damage gets onto me after. I don't need to know that it's based around his passive, with three like points of damage. I don't need to know that his first ability, whatever. I just need to know he's gonna dash onto me, and then he's gonna auto, and then I'm gonna lose my health. So like, it's like you just
Mhm.
need to understand that about every champ. So say that you do die to a champion and you're like, what the fuck just happened to me? Then go watch a video. Just that
Yeah.
simple, right? Just look up whatever Wild Rift, watch it. Obviously, depending on how much time you have is going to depend on, like, this is more of a niche thing. That's not the main concern for me. The main concern is all the other stuff we focused on. But if you're looking to squeeze, your kind of skill even higher, then that's an additional thing, especially as someone who's newer to the game. And I would say just like,
Yeah.
I personally, again, depends on your goal with the game, everything like that. So this is like a you kind of decision, but I recommend the rest of this season, your only goal in every way is to get better, which means you're going to waste that time watching that video instead of playing an additional Wild Rift game. You're going to waste the time trying to limit test rather than trying to win that individual game. You have zero real concern about winning or climbing within this season. Realistically, you're probably still going to win a similar amount of games to you win now because you're going to be making more correct decisions. But like, I really don't
Yeah.
want that to be a concern. Even next season for the first month, because the way the seasons work, it's really hard to climb early on, because everyone gets reset. So like, say that you reset to plat and I reset to diamond, which is what I would reset to if I get sovereign. I could play against you, and it's like, you're not gonna beat me unless my team is mega running it down, because that's just obviously right. And so like, you're
Yeah.
never gonna climb until I climb to a certain point, and it's gonna take me and all their sovereigns, everything, a month to climb up to the master plus, right? So you have to wait anyway for those people to climb before you have any chance of climbing early on. So you might as well utilize that time to just improve. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think I kind of lost that because I set myself for like quick backstory.
Yeah.
I played Dota like semi-pro, Dota 2 for like 6 years. I
Yeah.
was 6K MMR, not great, but I knew how to play the game.
Yeah. Yeah. You're at a much higher level.
Um,
I get that. Yeah.
yeah, and I was just like, oh well, I can't play. I don't really feel like playing this anymore. This Wild Rift game looks fun. The community looks dope. By the way, I found yours and Royal's videos before I even started playing the game,
Oh, that's cool.
so I got into it.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And I was like, oh well, let me see if I can just get diamond my first season. I didn't even know what that meant yet,
Yeah.
but the way you're talking about it probably leads me to get more skill cap in the future because I'm not focused on improving and learning the game. I'm just like, how
Yeah,
can I
and that's also
exploit
what makes it more
when?
fun. Like, it's just more enjoyable because then you're not thinking about your teammates being dumb and whatever. You're more concerned with those things, so
Mhm.
it kind of makes it more fun as well. It's easier said than done.
Yeah,
There's gonna be days where you get tilted. Yesterday, I was fucking flaming my team. Like, it's happens to everyone, so it's normal. But yeah, that's the general thing. And then
I was
yeah,
so tilted yesterday.
yeah, no, that happens. It is what it is. But then last thing here for this game, and it looks like the replay ends. Wait, what? The thing ends now, but the game won't end. Or do you surrender? Did
No, no, okay. I was having issues working Mobizen. I thought that I got the whole video, but for some reason when I was recording it, it recorded like three
Okay.
hours and 30 minutes. Yeah, this was a technical issue. I
Okay.
remember exactly what happens after this. We win this fight mid, and then we end.
So there's not much to talk about anyway. That's fine. So that's
Yeah,
good.
yeah,
The only thing is here, right? When you're on the Elder, this is the last point, and then we'll be going on the next game. You don't push the wave initially. The number one, again, waves. Literally everything goes back to that at the end of the day. The Barons or the Elders about to spawn, and you don't go on mid wave right away. So because you don't go on mid
yeah,
wave right away, the enemy get complete control. And let's say they were actually good at Wild Rift, right? They would be taking your inhib and they would be ending the game, like, which they almost do anyway. And then we see that apparently you guys end up winning this fight. But like, this is a big issue with macro. And say the enemy understood the game properly, their jungle didn't int and die randomly, there would have still been a 50-50 you lose Elder while the rest of the team's doing this. And so we need to push the wave before we make the fight, or go for objectives basically. But I think we've kind of went over a lot of this stuff, so I think it's kind of like understood, and it will write down the notes at the end. I have to coach someone in
yeah.
45 minutes, so we should have enough time because it's a 25-minute game. But if I end up noticing it's kind of close, I'm going to start rushing through a little bit just to make sure I can get the notes written as well, but we should be fine. So, are you using the same runes? Have you like that I use on Echo in the build, or do you change it? I don't know if you've like looked at what I do, but
Actually, I think I showed at the end of the video, but I do fleet footwork, sudden impact, bloodthirst, and what's the other like kind of assassiny one? I don't use the same runes that you use.
it's
I
like
use
Eyeball
Royal's
Collector or
old
something
build.
like that.
Yeah, Eyeball Collector.
Yeah. And then do you use like bone plating or something or second wind or as your like
I
additional?
think I take bone plating as
Okay.
my extra.
Yeah, no, these are fine. Like again, there's multiple options if this is what you prefer. I don't think it's better, you know. Like I'm like obviously I suggest what I use, but
I
this is
mean, I'm
not
open
bad.
to trying it again. I don't remember what your runes on Echo are actually,
Yeah,
off the
so
top of my head.
I use fleet. I the difference is my normal runes are resolve, which is the tanky tree.
Hmm.
I think it's nullifying orb, second wind, and then like perseverance. Slash obviously you switch to
Okay.
overgrowth instead of perseverance. Perseverance into CC, overgrowth if you just need health. Um, and then the Gathering Storm. I think Gathering Storm should be a must. Like the fact, and you don't have Gathering Storm because you're going red rune. So I think the not Gathering Storm is extremely bad. I think everything else you do what you want. That's fine. And then it makes your lane phase really easy because you have resolve. And like Echo's goal as a champion is to push the lane in roam. Your goal is not to solo kill your lane opponent. Now, if they int, you solo kill them, obviously, but like that's not the goal. And so when that's not the goal, you just need to be tanky enough to survive the lane to get it in a position to roam, which is why resolve makes sense
Yeah.
to me. And then Gathering Storm gives you so much AP late game that you're not really missing out on damage because you have that damage late game still with that as your extra. But like I said, I don't mind your runes, not the end of the world. So it's just a smaller detail. And then it looks
I
like
mean,
you
I
have
like that reasoning. I think
yeah,
I'll try.
cool,
I'll
cool.
try it in my next game.
And then
By the way,
here,
first time ever playing against the Ziggs.
oh, okay. So are you aware of how he works or not really?
I have an idea. He's like kind of you sit at far. I read his abilities before the game. You sit at far range and you throw bombs and shit at
Yeah,
people, and you have a
it's extremely
knockback, and you have a
straightforward.
long range ultimate. Yeah,
Yeah, it's very straightforward. It's just an artillery mage, like to the most basic degree. The only thing that you
hmm
really need to understand about interacting with the champion is that he throws his second ability. He throws a bomb on the ground, and then that bomb will bounce. If like he detonates it when he's standing on it, it'll bounce him, wherever it's like aiming him. And if he throws it on you, it'll also bounce you. And so the reason this is important is because he can use it as an escape if you dash onto him. And so if you see that bomb
yeah,
used, then you want to keep that in mind. But initially here, like his first ability and his like level one's not that scary. So for me, I like that you're doing this, right? Trying to instantly get the wave. Because like even if he landed all his poke like he did, you're not scared of that. And then you just wait for your first
yeah.
ability, you do it again. So I think you play this lane how I would play it. And then you should be trying to abuse level 2. So hopefully you do that. You third ability dash onto him. Nope, we don't. Okay, so this is the issue. When you're punishing someone and you have the level diff, like what you should be doing, you shouldn't be walking away. Like we can see again your body language. It's kind of like when casting, you're scared even now, and you know the limits of this champion better. And so what you should be doing, you upgrade your third ability, you dash onto him, you auto, and then you're gonna get your fleet auto. Or actually you don't have fleet here, but either way, you still get auto, still more damage. You're level 2. When you level up, you have more resist, you have more auto damage. You have more AP, you have everything, right? So you're stronger than him. So you want to be on top of him. And he's an artillery mage. Obviously, being on top of him is going to be good for you. So all of those reasons, you need to be trying to trade with him. And then if you really did it like super ideally, then you would auto this minion instead of doing this. You would auto this minion right here that's high health. The reason that you would do that is because then you would get a first ability auto, and then you'd auto it again, and then it would die because of your passive, right? And then now all these minions would be dead, so you'd get level 2 slightly quicker. The reason it's important to get level 2 slightly quicker is because then you'd be able to dash and bring your second part of your first ability onto him. And so if you look at it here, right, see how this takes you 1 additional auto? As I said, you wouldn't need this auto if you did what I said. And then you'd be able to immediately upgrade dash onto him. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and like part of the issue is like of how I play. I use the virtual controller on Akishi. I don't actually use touch controls, so leveling
Gotcha.
up's a little awkward. That's why I just stood there real quick because I had to let go of my
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's weird.
controller to tap level up, and I just couldn't get back to it fast enough.
That makes
Yeah,
sense.
I couldn't get used to the touch controls and made my hands cramp. So I'm hearing that I really need to find a way to level up on the controller because you're right. The Ziggs would be like half health if I was able to actually
Yeah,
do that
yeah, that would be
correctly.
ideal. I mean, I guess yeah. There's unique things. I would take second ability. I
Yeah.
know some people do first ability, right? Level 3. For me, second ability, I love having it at level 3, because then I can just throw it right here, walk at him, ignore all of his damage, and clear the wave for free, and then I get to go ward a camp instead of trying to interact. Whereas like this first ability, what this says to me is that I want to interact with Ziggs because I want more damage onto him. Whereas for me, the goal is not to interact. The goal is to push that lane immediately and then track jungle. And then your goal after that is to come back once the next wave comes, push that wave, and then recall because we're going to be on mana boots. And then once you have mana boots, now you're going to roam a lot. So that's kind of like what I'd be looking for. Whereas you just even trade with him. We don't get a ward, so we don't know where enemy jungle is. So now we're gankable. 125 is when scuttles spawn. And that means that now it's very likely that you do get ganked soon. And we don't know where the jungle is. And so that's what, and then here we see, right? Obviously you didn't die here. Yeah, so that's like something that could potentially happen. And that's like a little bit of a worry. And then again, if you had your second ability upgraded, then you would be able to use, like I would have used my second ability here, for example, so I can wave clear. There's no reason not to just throw it here. Like your second ability is more of a shield early game. It's hard to land as an actual stun early game because it's very telegraphed. The only way you do that is if you stand here where they can't see you.
You hide behind there, and then you use it.
And so if you're able to do that, do it. But like in this situation, it's just a shield. It's not a stun. So that's what I would be using it for. Instead, you don't use it. Not the end of the world. We missed a few CS. I think the CSing could be better. You should first ability right now. You eventually do. And yeah, maybe just as a PC player, you know, you try to be skilled, you try to land your skill shots. You don't do that in Wild Rift. You just auto aim stuff. Like for the most part, most skills are auto aimable in a lot of, like if you're playing Varus, you're playing Ezreal, sure they're not, but like just auto aim this guy when he's walking at you. Anytime they're walking in a straight line, just auto aim because it's quicker. Whereas you drag this, and you can auto aim with your controller, right?
Yeah, I can auto aim and drag.
Okay, then yeah. So here, let's actually like look at this, right? I'm actually pretty sure you potentially could kill this guy if we play it as I'm saying. So like right now, he's running at you. First ability, W, W behind him. So first ability on him, as he's running at you, W behind him. But wait for your dash to come up so that you have an angle to go on him. And once your dash comes up, like here, you know, your dash is closer. You do that, you're gonna just kill him or blow his flash, you know, something like that. But even more, I just want to recall right now. I don't really want to go for this in general anyways, because mana boots. And if you get here with mana boots, it's completely free. Instead, we're fighting again. Again, you did not second ability the wave. You haven't actually used your second ability once, by the way, and now you just used it and you died before you could even. So you could have gotten like 3 second ability values, you know, 3 shields, and you got 0 shields. And those shields 100%, again, are the difference maker between you living or dying. And as we said, we just wanted to recall. We had mana boots. The wave was already pushing, so you had time to come back. So yeah, no, there's all that. But yeah. Does that all make sense?
Yeah, I've noticed I don't get as much value as I don't maximize the value of my second ability in the early game. I noticed that, and I've been wanting to work on it. It's one of my
it's definitely a good, like I'd say it's the main mechanical thing for you on Echo is that second ability use. Like even here, hopefully you throw it. You do, so that's good that we're looking for it this time. And again, small thing, you could have squeezed the shield out of that. You know, wait half a second, get the shield, and then dash. I don't mind you just going insta because you just thought you could get damage. But again, even here, like your teammate's taking a bunch of damage. You can't do much, but just as when people use abilities, you know, you should be doing whatever you can after their abilities are gone. He's on your teammate. He's not going to immediately just magically go onto you, you know, like some god, right? So just go walk up and just first ability to slow. Like you're not going to save him. He's still going to die. But squeeze that little bit of damage in case maybe they chase you after. You know, that type of thing. And then do you know how Master Yi works?
Yes, kind of. He gets 2 auto attacks every 3 auto attack, and he kind of has like an Ember Spirit W. You wouldn't know. Like so he can teleport and attack everything, and then choose where he lands afterwards.
He does not choose where he lands, but
I thought you could.
He just goes on a champion. So
he just goes on a champion.
So the point is, the reason I said this is, okay, so let's look at what he does right now. So it's very obvious he's about to use his thing that goes inside of you, right? Like very telegraphed. You know this is going to happen. And so when he goes inside of you, if you were aware half a second earlier, what you actually could have done is walk back, third ability, flash under your turret, and he's under turret, and he dies. So like this is something you can do. And yeah, it's so he doesn't get to choose. He will just, since he went onto you, he will end up wherever you end up. And so you can flash him under your turret. That would have been an outplay angle. That's not something I really expect you to be doing when you don't know all the champs super well and everything. But that's just something, you know, a little thing to point out. And then did you have W up here? No, you didn't.
No, I didn't.
Say, if we're looking for W, I'm gonna try to. Or if we're looking for alt, I'm gonna try to W there. But you didn't have it, so. And it's fine that you tried to go for the ult and get the damage. It didn't work like perfect, but we get the damage on him. I don't mind because it kind of alleviates pressure. So
Yeah, I don't. If I had any of my spells up, that was at least a kill, maybe
yeah,
two.
yeah. So yeah, so far this game, trying to think of like the specific points. W usage, obviously, like how you do it here. I like this. You know, we're getting the shield out of it. We need to be able to recall on mana boots rather than sticking around so long, and just generally taking those like better recalls. And then we need to understand the goal of a skin, because now we've played 2 games and you've left your lane like basically zero. I think you have 0 roams right within 2 games, which
Yeah.
on Kassadin it's fine, but you've actually been in 2 advantageous matchups. Kassadin beats Echo, Echo beats Ziggs, and you've been in both of them, and you've lost lane, which is fine because your champion doesn't need to interact hard in lane, but you haven't roamed either. So we should be getting something out of it. Again, this is a roam angle, not a turret angle. Your champion's not hitting turrets in most cases. The only time you're hitting turret is like, say you see someone else roam and you know there's no way you're getting there in time, then okay, I'll hit turret. Or like, you have
That's why I didn't go top,
that's why you didn't go top. What do you mean?
because my jungler is going top right now, and it looks like they already have the kill on Varus because he's half health. Like that's the reason I went on the turret instead, because that's under tower and
Okay, so
it,
I understand that. Let me give you a few
mhm.
reasons why it would make more sense to roam. So the first thing is,
Okay,
and obviously this is, you know, results based because we see it, but you don't know where jungle is.
yeah,
And so there's a chance that jungle ganks you, which he ends up ganking
mhm.
you. Right. And so the first thing is we're in danger. We don't know where everyone is. So we don't want to go for turret when we don't know where everyone is, just for obvious reasons. The second
Right,
thing is, if your teammates get a kill, that's really cool because now we pushed a wave, which means we have time to do something else. And so what we can do is go hit their turret, because their turret, we're protected by a Leona and a Maokai, so we're not going to die. Whereas this is a risky turret, that's a free turret. And then you also get the wave there, so you're just getting more gold. Because now also, you just push this wave, you have nothing to do here right now. But if you go get that top wave as you're hitting the turret, because as you're hitting the turret, the next wave is going to come. Now you got that wave as well. So again, we're fine with sealing our teammates' waves. They might not be fine with it, but I don't care what they're fine with. We're fine with it, and so we're going to get more gold into ourselves. So that's why you would rather do that. I do understand the rationale, though. I think it's reasonable, but that's like why we would prefer to do that. And then we can
yeah,
actually
that
see
tracks.
top side what happens is actually, if you're there matching that Ziggs, like you potentially kill someone because someone did still die to the Ziggs, right? Like, so even there, because you didn't know where Ziggs was, someone else was able to respond, and then it still isn't like a super beneficial. It's a 1-for-1 for them there. So that's also something, but yeah.
Yeah, I
And then
probably
again, we
should have
need to
backed him up
recall.
top looking at it again.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
we need to recall again. 30 seconds for an objective. We're almost always seeing if there's a recall angle. And being half health plus having 1900 gold is most definitely a recall angle. And you didn't have anything to
yeah.
do. Like, let's actually, it takes 5 seconds to recall, I think, something like that.
Mhm.
This wave is here, which again, if we're looking at it, after you push this wave, you could have recalled right now, right? You could have recalled at 4:35. Instead, we wait for the wave, 5 seconds, 10 seconds, and now 13, 14 seconds later, we get to there. If we recalled for 5 seconds and then walked back, you'd pretty much be here. You might lose a singular minion, but you've spent 2,000 gold. 2,000 gold is obviously a
Yeah,
very significant amount, so that, you know, that's why we would prefer that. And now you're also low for the objective, so now you don't get to go help in an objective. So yeah.
I didn't even realize how bad my recall timers were until this coaching. I thought I was a little better at it, but yeah, I'm not thinking about that enough in games at all.
Yeah, and that's a really easy one to fix too, because it's kind of like some of these other things, they're all unique situations, but it's like 5 minutes is always when it's going to spawn. So you always can just be like trying to build that habit of 4:30, I check and I make the decision at 4:30, do I need a recall or not? And then you can do the same, Baron spawns at 12 minutes every time. And then obviously whenever the dragon, you know, second drag, whatever is spawning. So it's a very like, you know, easy decision to make every time, that we can
He's not
consistently kind of
coming
make
here.
on. So yeah. And the fight works out well, so that's good.
Yeah. Okay. So for I want to push the wave, and then I want to recall um before I see it my side of the map, obviously.
You want to do that usually, I would say, anywhere from a minute to 30 seconds before the objective. Yeah.
Yeah, a minute to 30 seconds before the objective, but like recalling and keeping lane prio is also like probably a reason why I don't, because I'm worried about not keeping it and like doing a
Yeah,
bad
so
recall, so I just don't recall.
yeah, so as I said, the game revolves really heavily around the waves. And so you're not giving up
Hmm.
prio if there's no wave. And so if you already
Right.
pushed the wave, then you're not losing anything. And then
Okay.
the other thing is like, so obviously you will they might get to the wave first. You're right about that, right? Because they will be there maybe say 5 seconds before you because the wave maybe reaches a little earlier since you did recall. But
Yeah.
it doesn't matter because you've spent that gold and they haven't. So now you're like, let's say you're down 1,000 gold in lane, but you just spent 1,000 gold and the enemy has 1,000 gold. You're still stronger than them. You know what I mean? So it's like, it doesn't actually matter the gold they have. It matters the gold they've spent, which is why you can just pressure them off that wave because you're stronger. And so that's why the recall matters so much, because it's going to give you prio in 5-10 seconds, even if you have that prio lost for 2 seconds because, you know, you didn't get to the wave first. So being really strong also matters, obviously, a lot more.
Yeah.
And then forcing
And
on a
like this,
turret is a little greedy, but it's fine.
yeah, I think I might have even killed him there if I had had my Lich Bane.
No, you definitely
No.
wouldn't. But it would be cool if you did. But I would just go for turret. And actually, again, all these hindsight things are so funny because obviously I can't possibly know this. But as I said, right, I wanted you to E the turret. If your E to the turret would have killed this, and then you get first turret. So it's like all these
I
little
did E
things.
the turret.
What?
I did E the turret.
No, you eat Ziggs. I mean when you eat Ziggs. Here.
Oh, when I eat Ziggs,
Yeah.
yeah,
You
okay.
might mean, yeah, maybe you did it again like later. I meant this one, right? But yeah, you probably did right after. And so that's just what I mean is like you squeeze that little amount of advantage and then it's like going to be a lot more beneficial. And then yeah, when you're this low, we should just be backing off at this point. It's a bit like greedy, but it's fine.
Yeah,
I kind of
I
like
thought I
seeing
was
the
gonna
greed from
die
you.
anyway, so I went in to try to get the turret last hit because I thought I could get it with my E.
Why did you think you were going to die here?
Um,
Like in this
I knew
situation, well, maybe
they had a Varus was missing. I thought he was gonna come around back and ult me. I didn't see that he was already like on the
okay.
turret when I made the decision to go.
Gotcha. So yeah, I'm just saying we
Yeah.
obviously could have dashed out, but again, I appreciate the reasoning, so we understand like what's going through our kind of mind there. So you just try to get something, and say you actually were dead, then it's fine to do that. But yeah, the reality is we could have just dashed out because Varus was like not currently showing, and then he showed up in a spot where he was too far to ult us or anything. But yeah.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I mean again, obviously because we are newer to the game, I'm not gonna have us focus on so many things at once. I don't think it's beneficial to try to focus on 20 things at once. It's something I always tell people.
Yeah.
I was coaching someone earlier, so I think I just said this to them. I don't think I said this to you yet. But basically, when I'm going to write out the notes for you, I want you focusing only on 1 or 2 points at a time. I don't want you focusing on 10 things at once because improving all those things is just too much. You're trying to build up kind of autopilot kind of habits where it's like, no, you don't have to think about it at some point. And so initially, I want everything that you think. I want your only thought. I don't want, like, I legit don't want brain power to be attributed to anything else. I want you to do everything normally, and I want your only thought process to be, I need lane prio. I need to know where the waves are at all time. I only want you thinking about waves because that's where most of your mistakes arise from currently, or where the waves are. And then once you feel like you're starting to understand waves, you're getting more gold, you're having the prio, you're doing all these things, then you'll go into the next points, which will be a lot, you know, focused on the lane phase for us, like in the early game. And then once you focus on those things, then you're like, okay, now I'm going to focus on, let's say, my specific mechanics. And obviously, you know, I'm not literally saying like you can't try to implement multiple things I told you at once. It's just like I want one major focus, and then everything else to just be like a benefit. You know, it's like, okay, cool, if I do improve that, whatever. If not, it's fine. I'll improve it later after I get better at that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And it like watching these back with the coaching is making me realize like a lot of the league specific and like not just general MOBA things are holding me back way more than I thought they did. Like I don't really understand how recall timers work because items work completely differently in Dota 2, so none of that carries over for me. So I'm brand new to it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So you're like absolutely right. And I could have killed that Varus there, I think.
I mean, you never should be here, but you should have W'd before Eing, right? To get it to go off quicker. And then you could have ulted back quicker.
That should probably be bought right now, huh?
I was gonna say like that's sort of what I was about to mention. Is like, yeah, there's no reason to be here in the first place. But yeah, you're right about the kill. If you W first, you would kill. But yeah, we should definitely be bought right now. Just generally, like, you don't really ever want to be in a position where your wave, like, as again a general rule, where I also want to make it clear, sometimes general rules get broken in certain cases, but generally you want the wave to be further up than you are in most cases, right? Like you don't really want to be moving
Yeah.
past that wave. So your wave, once it's pushed, then you get to start moving, because it also gives you vision. Like, it's like essentially a ward, where that, you know, thing getting pushed, then you get to see the enemy now, because they're going to have to respond to it. And now it's like, okay, now I have all this information given to me because of that, and now I'm free to make easier decisions. And you're completely right. Yeah, we should have been bought there. So good that you noticed that
I
as
should
well.
have been bought, but like the thought process was I wanted to get vision set up for Baron and maybe get a pick because they were
Yeah,
showing on the other spots on the map. But yeah, it would made more sense for me to be bought there.
yeah, and that's good that that is something that's in your mind, because that is a beneficial thing, or a useful thing, is to get the vision, you know, set up about.
Well,
Because
not
again,
Baron, but Dragon.
yeah, and again, it is like the recall timers tie into vision, which is like usually the sequence kind of goes: we push the wave,
Hmm.
we recall. After we recall, we come back. Maybe there's another wave. We immediately get the wave, and then we go for vision right after. So it's a whole sequence where it's, you know, a minute to 30 seconds. You're recalling, making sure your waves are pushed, and then you're also checking, you know, do I have the vision? Obviously, if you're kind of behind in the game, you don't really get the luxury of placing vision, but when you're ahead, you do. So that's kind of how it works as well. And then yeah, at this point, I mean, like generally, I think your mechanics are like decent on this champ. Overall, at this point, I might just leave and go mid, because like it looks like the fight's kind of losing. And so I'm thinking I'll just push this wave. I'll get at least something, but might end up getting a kill here. You do. So I mean, the fight ends up working out. That's generally something I'll kind of think about, is I'll try to analyze pretty early whether or not I think a fight's winning. But the issue is when you're like somewhat newer to the game, it's harder to always tell. And obviously, even me, you know, I'm wrong about this case, for example. It's hard to always tell, but it's kind of nice to, once something looks really lost, try to squeeze whatever you can. Maybe that's an extra wave, maybe that's a turret, whatever. It doesn't always have to be the objective, but we're okay with kind of giving up these things rather than really over forcing. But it did work out.
Yeah.
So
And then I stayed too long.
yeah, which is again, it's generally the time thing, right? It's the waves, and the wasting of time is usually kind of the main thing. So I'm imagining we're gonna see a lot of similar things. I'm gonna skip through a little because I do have 23 minutes, so I'm not like super, you know, but I want to make sure we have enough time for the notes and everything. So
Yeah, no, we've been talking a lot. My bad.
no, it's good. I prefer personally, like, I really enjoy coaching, and I like having like the longer ones where I get to talk more rather than just like like sometimes I'll talk and then the person never responds, and I just have to be like, does that make sense? So I make sure they're even there, that it didn't disconnect. So it's nice to actually,
Oh,
like,
that sounds awkward.
yeah, it's kind of awkward sometimes. I mean, I've done like, I'll probably coached 100 to 150 people at this point, so it's like you experience a lot of different types of. I've had people just like argue with me about every single point. I'm just sitting there having to explain to them like really basic things. They'll just tell me everything's wrong. There's a lot of funny things, but generally, yeah, I do think these are like the main points. I think in this fight, we'll see what leads up to it. You try to go for the stun. It's pretty hard to kind of trade onto a full health Master Yi in general. Like, it's going to be pretty hard. So target priority wise, we probably could have gone on to Sona, but because our teammate's not here, because he's topside, it doesn't even make too much sense to like hard engage. I would say it's another thing when we are going into a fight, we should always kind of just check the map before it starts. Where is our team located? I don't hate the decision from you, frankly, though. We're behind a lot. You tried to pick someone that you saw, and it turns out a lot of people were there that we didn't see initially. So I don't really hate that decision, even though it doesn't work out.
Yeah.
And yeah, they have Baron. We're just kind of turtling. Pretty straightforward here. I would go topside instead of going mid here. Again, Baron does give combat buffs as well, not just the Baron. So they are a lot stronger and harder to fight. And then usually the goal when the enemy has Baron is just push the waves so they don't have their waves synced, because basically the goal of a Baron is to get multiple waves on the same like line so that they're hitting the turrets at the same time, because then the enemy can't possibly respond to everything. And so say you push the top initially, then they're at least not going to be able to sync it. Now, again, the way it works in low elo, they'll all ram down mid, and if they end up killing you all, then they get the Nexus like that. So that's how it ended up working out. And it looks like actually the game is already over. So yeah,
The game's over.
That's kind of the last thing about like Baron usage. But yeah, we'll just go into notes. You see my notes here?
Yeah, I see him.
Okay, so we'll go back to the early game. Oh, it was Echo and Cast then. But we'll go back to the early game, start thinking about those things, talk about them. If anything I say doesn't make sense, or you want it worded differently, obviously these notes I'm sending to you, so they need to be making sense to you. So just tell me or ask questions if you have additional questions. But first thing is, in winning matchups, because again, both of these are winning matchups, we need to take base and lane is basically how we like refer to it, which is basically you kind of just threatening them on like the edge of their sort of range, taking up as much space as possible, and then focusing on lane prio. So do you know what lane prio is?
Um, I think I do, but I'm
Um,
relating it heavily back to Dota, and it works very differently. So if you just want to give me a quick
yeah.
rundown to make sure my understanding's
Yeah, I
right,
mean,
I'd
lane prio
appreciate
is
it.
pretty straightforward. Essentially, all lane prio means, and I'll just go back to find the wave just to give easy example. But all lane prio is having the lane pushed, and basically you have more minions than the enemy, so that the wave is going to push towards them. So like currently you don't have, or like 2 seconds ago you didn't have lane prio, right? Because it was all even. But then now you push
Yeah.
this, so now you have lane prio because you have 3 minions, they have 0. And the reason it's called prio, it's because it gives you the priority to make decisions, because you get to roam, you get to recall, you get to trade, you get to do whatever. And so it basically is just you having the pressure in the lane, so you get agency to make decisions. And the way you get that agency and you get that prio is all based, once again, around waves. And so if we push the waves,
Yeah,
then
that
we're able
makes
to do
perfect
that.
sense. Okay, that's what I
Yeah,
thought it was.
exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, in the winning matchups, you need to take the space, and the way you take the space is by getting the prio, by pushing the wave. And so that's the first thing you really need to
So
focus on, because if you
yeah,
have that prio, then it's really easy to trade because you have the level advantage and stuff like that. And so then I'm just going to write as well, trade around level advantages. If you're level 2, they're level 1, like you should have done in there. And again, we had the upgrade issue, the controller, so that's kind of separate, but we still want to trade around that when we can. Then also the Kassadin thing, like on Kassadin, try to kiss. I hate autocorrect pass. Try to push leads, limit test, instead of accepting that we are are weaker, basically. And obviously we
yeah.
spoke
I
about
think
this.
I'm
So
literally just gonna play Kassadin all day today to try
no,
to
I think it's a
see
great
if I can
idea. Yeah.
improve. Yeah.
And I do think you could do a lot of these same things on Echo, because I do think you're not bad at Echo. I think you understand him well, but I still think there's a lot of limits to be tested with this champion. So I still think that mindset to a lesser degree should also come in there. And then the next thing is this is probably, mechanically speaking, your biggest issue, is you need to trade back on enemy when they use their spells. Because
Okay.
like again, we obviously saw it a lot, right? Echo used all his stuff and then you ran away and you flashed. It's like, it doesn't really make sense. And then more generally, just think about how enemy will respond, what they are thinking. And this is hard to do when you don't know how all the champs work, but something that, again, you know how Echo works, for example, and yet we weren't doing it against him. And so like, just think about what the enemy is going to do. It's just similar to point 4, but we just need to sort of try to understand, are they going to go on us? Does it actually make sense? Do I need to flash? Am I safer? That type of thing.
Don't play scared. It's not productive, basically.
Yeah, 100%. We don't want to accept that, because again, it's also like, yeah, if we're playing Kassadin, in a professional game against the best players in the world, sure, like maybe you're going to technically have to do things, but the reality is, if I go into a plat game right now and I play Kassadin against Lucian, I'm going to win that lane over 50% of the time. I'm sure I'll lose sometimes because I'm an inter, but like, generally speaking,
Yeah.
I'm going to win it even though it's an awful matchup. It's how it works. People do not play near optimal, so
I
there's
mean,
that.
also I was misjudging the matchup because I've bullied Kassadin's really hard on Echo before, and the way you're
Yeah.
talking, that should never happen.
No, it shouldn't, and we can see why it happens is because of, even they probably play kind of how you played it, as we saw, right?
Yeah,
The
that
main
makes sense.
issue, or the main thing about that matchup is you have to trade around Kassadin passive, right? Which is you use an ability near someone, you get the magic shield,
And
and
I have
then
spell shield.
and then you push the wave slowly as you're getting those
I'll do that.
advantageous trades, and then you're going to get the level diff, whereas you let him get the level diff. That's why he won it, and that's why a lot of people lose to Echo, is because they don't understand that they need to punish him after he uses his Q, and then he's able to push the wave, get level 2, and win. So that's probably what you were doing as well. And that's probably why you were able to win that matchup.
Yeah.
And then yeah, mana boots recall is very valuable, and you can do this. I'll just say, so you know what I mean when I say crash wave? Like, you know what that means?
Yeah, yeah. I push the way. I
Yeah.
push my
Crash it
wave
under their
so
turret.
that
Yeah.
mine crashes in their turret and they lose all the gold. Yeah.
Fourth wave, depending on what works, recall.
Mhm.
So the third wave that comes, the third wave of the game, if you have perfect CS, you will get mana boots. But if you don't have perfect CS, you're gonna have to get a fourth wave. And so that's kind of a CS mean, I think creep score, right? But
Yeah, yeah. I know what that means.
yeah, I always like have to make sure that I clarify terminology, because I don't always know what people do or don't know. But yeah, so just
Yeah, I
either
got
the
you.
third or fourth wave, you crash that, and then you get mana boots. That's your big power spike. We need to be better about recall timers, and then we'll just write in general. Recall about 30 to 60 seconds before an objective. Oh, one last thing for lane. Punish last hits for lane. What I basically mean by this is when the enemy minion is 1 HP, like it's about to die, you need to walk up because they're going to choose between autoing you or autoing the minion. They can't do both. And so you need to use that as a time to land your abilities. This is something you do in a winning matchup. In a losing matchup, you could try, but it depends on how winning that matchup is for the enemy, or if you're going to be able to do that.
What should I do if I'm not sure about the matchup? Like if I don't know the champion, because that happens to me a lot.
Yeah, if you don't know how the matchup works, then
Okay.
you just limit test as hard as possible, and then you figure it out. And you're going to die a lot, but yeah, that's how you're going to do that.
But I'll be better next season because I'm trying to see where the limits of the champions are.
And the only issue with this is you're going to constantly have to recalibrate, like in your mind, what is a winning and losing matchup, because, like I said, and maybe I'm sounding mega egotistical here, but if I lane you when I'm Kassadin and you're Lucian, you're gonna lose to me, but Kassadin still loses to Lucian. So it's like the higher rank you go, the more you're gonna realize, oh, maybe that's actually not a winning matchup. I was just winning because it was a bad player. So you're gonna constantly still have to shift this in your mind. But when this happens, like say you play Kassadin versus Echo, and so like you said, we kind of explained how a low elo player might lose that as the Kassadin, even though they shouldn't. And then the reasoning again is like what you might see differ when then say you're Echo and you lane into a good Kassadin and then you get shit on, is that, oh, he's playing around that ability cooldown. He's trading when I trade back on him. He's not letting me get the prio. And so what you have to do every time that this matchup shifts is like maybe review. You're like, oh, I thought the matchup went this way, but then in that game it went differently. And then look at what was different. Was it that he did what we said, how it would change with that matchup? Or maybe he was trading with me on a level diff. So every time that a matchup goes differently than you thought, you kind of have to think in your mind why that actually happened. And then you'll have that new kind of perspective, that type of thing.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And then, so general recall about 30 seconds to 60 seconds for an objective. And then I'm just going to write objective checklist after pushing a wave. And basically, what I mean, and I'll put in parentheses, is check if needing to recall, check if waves are pushed. I can't type, holy shit. Check if objective is worded, and check teammate's location. So you just basically need to be checking all these things before every objective. Those are the main things. Obviously, there's probably some other small details. For example, if we did get into like higher level later, one of the things I often have to talk to a little higher level players about is like, you need to keep track of the most dangerous spells and stuff like on the enemy and who's the strongest, who am I going to target. And so that would be an additional checklist, but I don't want you.
I definitely watch for that when I know. But when I don't know, I don't even think about it. Like, but if I know for a fact, like I'm playing against Nautilus, right, and I'm waiting for his ulti before I go in because otherwise I'm getting targeted.
Yeah, and that's something that will develop further with time. And for now, it's not the main focus, but I do think that's very likely once we work on these things, the next kind of step, as we said. So yeah, there's this stuff. Then side lane more often, and side lane opposite or same side of objective. Every time I'm coaching a top laner, I have to say opposite side, so it's like ingrained in me. So same side of objective, most of the time as a mid laner, is where you want to side lane, especially if, say, your dual lane go mid. You don't really want to spend too much time with them for the most part. And then when we do roam, try squeeze as much as possible from the roam, or as much as we can from the roam. And then what this means is basically get in additional wave, turret plates, etc. Because again, we have to waste that additional 15 seconds to walk back to mid, so we might as well get as much as we can. And then just generally, just like time is really valuable. Like, so
yeah, stop wasting my time
just be
running
efficient.
in a circle figuring out what to do.
Yeah, just commit to something. That's really what matters. And then game revolves around waves. So all your decisions should be based around waves at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
What else? I'm trying to think if there's anything else. These are probably most of the points. W usage on Echo. I'm just gonna write W usage. We spoke specifically, so we'll just write that. Yeah. Are there any other questions or anything we spoke about that you also want like written out?
Yeah, so like you mentioned, focus on one or two things at a time in the game. Is this in order of
No, it's not
importance
in
or like
order.
which
This is in
one?
order from just what came to my mind. So I'll quickly
Yeah,
write.
perfect.
Well, I can quickly
You
go
don't have
to.
to do all that, but
I mean, I don't mind. Like I
which?
said, I have 5 minutes or 10 minutes until like I wouldn't be
Okay, yeah,
doing
go
anything
ahead.
else.
Yeah,
So I might as well look at the main things. I don't think we'll list it 1 through 14, but we'll find the main things that we think are most important.
yeah, yeah.
So I would say initially the thing I want you focusing on is waves, and so this is like I'll just write like most important points just separately here. So most important points in order, and then like I'm just in order. So 13 is going to be the most important. Then that obviously we spoke about a lot of specific things. I recorded this. This will probably be a YouTube video within say 5 days, so you can go back, to watch to figure out like specifics on that. And obviously you're always still free to message me and ask questions if you have like this type of thing they're struggling with. But yeah, generally waves, pushing the waves, which means I think we had a point about pushing waves somewhere here, did we? I don't know if we had anything. I guess the objective things probably, like the objective's kind of the same thing where you're pushing your wave before the objective, then you recall. So that sort of thing, those two kind of go together in a lot of ways, and being in that situation. And so then at the same time, 9, because now you're going to be pushing your wave better, 9 is going to be, checking everything before the objective, which again, this all relates to the waves, but these are the difference points, like how they specifically relate to the waves. And that's why I want you focusing on these things like together. And so I'll just write like those 3 points kind of go together. And then the next most important thing, once you figure out sort of this type of stuff, is going to be all of your lane phase things. So I'm going to say like 1, 2, because those are both kind of similar. 3 is like important, but not like the main thing, but I do want that to be obviously like something you keep in mind as well. Driven enemy, then 4. And again, I'm kind of grouping them. So like, obviously I said 1 or 2, but like if you say you're like kind of thinking about all 3 of these, at a time, and then like now you're thinking about these 3, that's fine. And then side lane more often. The side laning thing is important, but again, not main point. So I'd say it's something a little bit to worry about after, but it's still very important. Try to squeeze as much as we can from our roam. I'd probably say 11. Yeah, I'm gonna say these, and then also I'd say these are like the initial ones I'd work on, and then you sort of pick and choose after that. I would say typically the amount of time I would imagine it would take to like feel pretty good about this, obviously it's not gonna be perfect, is like you spend, I would say, 20-ish games, maybe 10, 20, thinking about these things. And then you go on to these for the next 10 or 20, and then you could probably find something to pair with this one, whatever it really is that you feel like. Because it's also partially like, it's what's fun to you. So if you're like, oh, I really want to try to like hard push my lead on Kassadin, well then the first thing you could do is just go limitless on Kassadin. Like you said you wanted to go limitless on Kassadin, go do that today, because that's what you want to do, because it's fun. And so that's fine. That's also an important thing.
But while I'm doing that, I can pay attention in the background. Okay, what are the waves doing? Like just
Exactly.
like ask myself that question every couple of minutes.
Yeah, and that's why it's not like literally like I'm actually saying only do one thing. It's just, there's one or two main things, and then you get on to some additional stuff. So yeah, are there any additional questions or anything else?